Hey, it's Sonosi coming from the tundra that is known as New York. So, it's been a bit since you guys have heard from me, so I figured I'd do a video trying to get back into the step of things, kind of after everything that's going on. So, first things first, I'm sure you guys have seen all the announcements that kind of been going through, which has kind of triggered the idea of this video. So, it's a little bit controversial opinion about this. Most people kind of see the Baddest Motherfucker Belt, it's called a BMF belt, kind of is, so let's be honest, gimmicky, trash, all of the above. I don't blame you if you think of that. Though, if you consider the history of the UFC and MMA in itself, it's not too far-fetched when you think about it. We've had Grand Prix, like from prior when they went open weight at one point. We had the King of Pancreas, and one that's very important that I see this kind of like a sequel or evolution of this belt because it was made for. We're talking about the inaugural defunct belt of all. We're talking about the Superfight Championship belt. Now, this belt was created before weight classes were introduced back in '97. They kind of used this before because you gotta remember back then it was the tournament format where you kind of had to have two people fight. So they kind of used this to kind of anchor two popular stars to fight each other. More or less how we do money fights and everything else that you see nowadays. Now, that went defunct after the very infamous UFC 9 incident that happened in Detroit that involved legislation where basically they could not punch and it became known as the dance. It was a really bad event from back then when I've seen on home videos. I didn't watch this one. I was too young for that one. But it was a pretty bad event is all I could say. But get to the point though. The reasoning why the BMF belt is good and bad is for a couple of reasons. When you've gotten situations like where we're going through right now with student championships, having the BMF can be advantageous in the sake of not messing with the rankings. My only issue I've run into right now is the fact that it seems like it's being held down to lightweight, but considering the announcement is, you know, about Justin Gaethje going against Max Holloway, we kind of have it going in an interesting direction right now. Now, my personal opinion, if this belt becomes more prevalent, we have to set some kind of guidelines. If you're the champion, you kind of got to either go up or down, or find a nice middle class of it. Because I know I'm trying to remember the name. I think the 155. I think it was 65. I think it was division they were suggesting in the past to kind of fuse the weight classes together. Have something like that. Have people who are big stars, and of course I'm going to mesh with the rankings. You got people who are in limbo right now, like Kobe Covington. Wouldn't call him a BMF personally. We're talking about people that if you want to have qualifications, I feel like you need to be very exciting, a fan favorite, and most important of all, you are doing finishes. You got to get those kind of factors if you even consider it, which is why, unfortunately, people like Masvidal did count for that near his late stages of his career because he was finishing people, whereas even though Usman did hypothetically won the belt by beating Jorge Masvidal, it didn't count as a belt. I don't know what makes the logic of it, but the way you make this belt interesting is you have multiple defenses. You gotta figure out some criteria of what constitutes a BMF in the first place. I know it's a very cringy subject. I know people don't like talking about it. I don't blame you. But I don't know, I'm just looking at this whole thing. I'm kind of curious which other people would you include for this belt right now, because you got to include people like Bobby Green, people like Jim Miller would even fit this thing. Then you got athletes that are exciting as hell to the division. But here's the problem: you kind of, when you're going through how the current rankings are and how the current setup is, if it's at lightweight, you're not going to get anyone more than bantamweight or welterweight kind of balancing out. So you're really excluding other people. So that's the bad part about it. The good part, however, is if whoever's the champion, I feel like you start dictating kind of where the fluctuation between those are. I mean, if you remember Sakuraba back in Pride FC, the man was willing to fight anyone at any weight class. He was a crazy person. I think he went through 4 different weight classes. We've had plenty of fighters too who have done that in the past too. I mean, BJ Penn went as high as heavyweight. Even people like Dan Hooker did, Lyoto Machida. Rumble Johnson went from welterweight all the way skyrocketing, I believe, to heavyweight near the end of his career in Bellator. Might be incorrect with that, but I know at least light heavyweight. But the point is, we need to figure out how this would be dictated in the future if we're going to use this. It's not a fun subject. it's a horrible thing. The fact that it's filling up a slot for UFC 300 is bad, but when you consider there aren't that many options left, as in, like, I imagine you guys don't want to see Grasso defend her belt, making another slot. We don't want to see Leon Edwards defend his belt against Bilal on the belt. Let's be honest, at this rate, we're going to see Pereira probably take the last slot, but it's not the worst idea in the world. Like I said, the beauty of this BMF belt is you get popular stars who don't have to be in the rankings. You could put someone like Conor McGregor for it, for example, in the future. And guess what? Doesn't cause any issues at all. I don't think you deserve a title shot if you have the BMF belt, personally. It's, as Islam Makhachev said, for the most part, it's for bums. It's not wrong. Though if someone like Max wins it, it does put a little bit more prestige to it, because it means someone who actually is a champion has gotten it, versus people who, if best, have gotten an intern championship. But, you know, you guys let me know what you think, what suggestions you'd have, any special rulings. Would you make it, like, instead of 5-minute rounds, 3-minute rounds, smaller cage? What kind of fun things would you consider that would work for a BMF style fight, I guess? And yes, I know, the comments are going to probably roast me for it. This is a little WWE, but like I said, we've had a belt like this before with the Superfight belt, so we might as well bring it back in some stage. Anyway, that is it for now. I appreciate you guys' time, and I shall catch you on later on, hopefully. Peace.